Hello, everyone. This is the Catholic Esquire. You know, I've had something on my mind a lot the last few weeks, and I was going to talk about this much earlier, but with the death of Francis, the election of Leo, all of these things getting in the way, it delayed my start time on this. I was going to start talking about this right after the first week of Easter. But nevertheless, I did make an allusion to it in one of my previous videos about one of the biggest problems within the Novus Ordo world of the Catholic Church today. Besides synodality, besides the Paschal mystery problem where the teaching on redemption is screwed up, it's theology of the body. TOB. Now, if you've listened to me since the beginning on this channel, you know my history a little bit. You'll know that before I started attending traditional Latin Mass and traditional parishes in about 2020, the year 2020. Before that, I was pretty involved in my local Novus Ordo parish. I taught RCIA. I taught marriage prep. I was a mentor. At one point during all of this, I even gave a talk on the issue of contraception. During that time, I promoted, I spoke very highly of, I defended John Paul II's Theology of the Body, which really became Christopher West's Theology of the Body. It's a little weird how that all worked out. Um, but I promoted it and defended it, and I ended up having to go to confession for a lot of that. And the reason is because over time, and especially after I started diving into the problems with modernism, as you may know, I also have a series going on the history of Vatican II. I've been doing a lot of research on uh, philosophy and the philosophies that go behind a lot of the modernist theories and ideas. And I realized that this theology of the body stuff comes from a very non-Catholic novel philosophy of personalism, which John Paul II happened to adopt and tried to mesh it in with authentic Catholic doctrine. The problem is that you really can't do that. And it's my epiphany, I guess, as I realize that theology of the body is incompatible with teaching on the church, that I decided someone has to come out and say something. My conscience will not let me not do so. And so I do plan on talking more about this issue, theology of the body, contraceptive mentality, which is NFP, natural family planning. My personal belief, and this is just sort of a side note, I believe theology of the body was created simply in order to defend natural family planning. Natural family planning came about because the Catholic Church needed a response to the effort to promote artificial contraception back in the 1960s and 1970s. Clearly, it was already against Catholic teaching. Casti Connubii back in 1930 clearly prohibited it. But even before Casti Connubii, the Church Fathers, everybody knew the Church could not prove officially of artificial contraception. But my feeling is politically that Pope Paul VI really wanted to, and regrettably, unfortunately, I do think even Pope Pius XII fell into this. They needed an alternative. They needed to find an alternative solution to what they perceived to be a population problem. But really, it was a cultural problem. They wanted to find a way to not set the church so far outside of popular culture that they needed to come up with a way that they thought would not be contrary to Catholic doctrine, but still satisfy the popular will, so to speak. And they came up with this notion of natural family planning. Natural family planning is anything but natural because you have to plan it. Uh, you shouldn't have to go to classes to learn how to do something that's supposed to be this natural. Um, but I don't want to go down the NFP road right now. I really want to just focus and give you an overview of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I realized after teaching couples promoting these things that I was wrong because I was actually promoting contraceptive mentality, which is Catholic birth control. Theology of the body was created to provide the so-called theological basis for Catholic birth control. Now, the problem with the theology itself is it's not Catholic. It's a novelty. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's a weird combination of this non-Catholic personalism combined with John Paul II's efforts to mesh that with true authentic Catholic doctrine in order to come up with this hybrid Frankenstein gobbledygook that if you've ever actually read this stuff, instead of just listen to, say, Christopher West videos, if you've actually dived in and read this stuff, you're going to be like, what is this? What I'm hoping to do on this video and this channel is dive more into these problems, what's wrong with theology of the body, what's wrong with NFP, and how it really does impact people's faith, it impacts the church, and it impacts civilization. If there's ever been a time when the church is needed to correct the errors of the world, especially in regards to marriage and sexuality and all these things, if there's ever been a time, it's now. And yet all we have to fall back on is this theology of the body stuff, which is nothing but an accommodation to the modern secular world that honestly will look for any possible way to promote personal pleasure at the expense of having children and growing God's kingdom and creating souls so that they may be with God in heaven. So stick with me on the channel if this is of interest to you. I'm still going to be working as best I can on the history of Vatican II. So please stay tuned for that. The next episode on that's going to cover Kabbalah and especially some of the underlying ideas and philosophies of Kabbalah, because those things affect ultimately some of the ideas at Vatican II. And my friends, as you can see, all this is connected. Ideas of Vatican II affect what happens in theology of the body. All of these things are connected. When you have a little drop of poison and you put it into the system, the whole thing blows up. And this is a perfect example of what happens if you make a few little errors here and there. All of a sudden it blows up into this huge monstrosity to the point where now billions of Catholics around the world are openly promoting birth control, and they don't think that they are. So this is really dangerous, and I think a big deal. John Farrell at Annulment Proof YouTube channel, he's been talking about it, and I encourage you to go to his channel. He does a good job. And quite frankly, I didn't agree with him on everything at first. And as I do more research and more time, I'm realizing that Farrell is actually, he's right. And this is a big issue. So thank you for listening to this. Stay tuned. We're going to continue the ongoing commentary from Catholic Esquire, of course, on other issues in the church. But this is going to be another big topic that's going to be covered more regularly. It has to be. Thank you for listening. Pray for Holy Mother Church. Pray for the restoration of the traditional Latin Mass. And God bless.